Ashe. Ashe and Grand Rising, a grand day to you all once again, my fellow humans. And welcome to this another of my thought-provoking perspectives. With yours truly, I, the mystic philosopher. And yes, my people, it is high time for thinking. It is high time for reason, and it is high time for reasoning. It is also high time for all of our fellow natural, native, earthly humans to speak the truth, or more correctly, to speak the proven truth, also known as speaking facts. Word sounds, energy, vibration, with factual intent to the power that is, but is not, and nor can it be. And the topic for my talk today, on this beautiful early Grand Rising, as I sip along with a cup of tea. The topic is exploring the question: is the Palestinians a condemned people? And if the answer is yes, then why? Why are they condemned? Meaning, why are they condemned? Now, one of my regular listeners, after listening to my last presentation titled Another Perspective on Wars the World Over, asked me the following 7 questions. Number 1, mystic philosopher, what is your perspective on what is going on in the Middle East, mainly Israel, and what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank? And question number 2, why do you think the Palestinians are being made to suffer such harsh punishment, such human indignity, such cruelty, such abandonment and inhumanity? Why such wrath and such vicious vengeance from the hand of God that is evidently being administered through the state of Israel along with its cohorts, the United States, and all the political leaders and governments of the Western world? And question number 3, why do you think that their own God, Allah, has condemned and forsake them and hand them over to the God and people called Israel to be humiliated, to be dehumanized, and to be severely punished, if not to be exterminated from off the face of our Mother Earth? Question number 4, why do you think that they meaning the people of Palestine and Hamas, and their mothers and children, desperate cries for help, for justice and for mercy, for food to feed their infants and children, and water to stay alive, and to be allowed to bury their dead, are being ignored by the United Nations, by the World Health Organization, and the World Security Council, the Western world, the international community, and even by their own fellow Muslims, brothers and sisters and Arabs? And question number 5, why do you think those that are in authority, even their own fellow Arabs and Muslims that have the power, the military and otherwise, to help them, seems not to care enough about them to get involved and help save them, and if not them, the adults, the innocent and defenseless children? Question number 6. What sin do you think that they have committed or may have committed? What sin do you think they have committed or may have committed to be humiliated, to be dehumanized, to be rejected and punished the way that they are evidently being humiliated, dehumanized, and punished, and the way their cries for mercy, human empathy, sympathy, and justice are ignored and are being ignored and rejected even by some of those that call themselves the most merciful, the most civilized, the most God-fearing of all the devoted Christians. Why are most Christians, along with their leaders and preachers and prophets, hearts so hardened against them and their desperate condition? And question number 7, could it be that it is because they are Muslims and thus they have not accepted the Lord Jesus Christ, a Jew, as their God, their Savior and Redeemer? I look forward with much anticipation hearing your perspectives. First, I must say thanks very much for asking for my perspectives on these 7 questions. And not just direct or absolute answers to them, because the truth be told, I don't know the answers to them or anything for that matter. And my answers are just what I think I know. And what I think I know is what I am thinking. For without thinking, what do I know? Without thinking, how do I know that I know or that I don't know? And what I, the mystic philosopher, am thinking, what I'm thinking, is based on what I'm seeing, hearing, and sensing mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, metaphysically, and otherwise. So again, thanks for asking my perspectives. Now, before I begin to share some of my unique and thought-provoking perspectives and answer your 7 questions, please let me take the time out here and answer and explain the question in the topic of this, my talk. Exploring the question, is the Palestinians a condemned people? And the question here is the Palestinian a condemned people? And my honest answer is this. If the English word condemned really and truly mean what I think it is and what I interpret it to be and what the dictionary, the English dictionary, say it is, and I quote, sentenced to a particular punishment, especially death, declared to be reprehensible, wrong, or evil, or unfit to live with or to dwell among, etc., etc. Then from my perspective, if that's the case, if that's the meaning and definition, then they are indeed a condemned people, and the evidence is hereby showing and proving that fact. In fact, as I was about to turn off the television and start recording this talk, I heard the news reporter said that since the war between Israel and the Palestinian group called Hamas started on Saturday, October 7th, 2023, to date, early Monday, Grand Rising, October 30th, 2023, a mere 24 days, over 8,300 Palestinians, the majority of whom are children, innocent children, I might add, have already been confirmed dead, have already been killed by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and its aerial bombings, its incursions, and military campaign on Gaza and other areas in the Palestinian territory. And many more are reported buried alive and presumed dead or seriously injured under the rubble caused by the IDF's ceaseless bombings. Hundreds, if not thousands more, are reported missing and unaccounted for. And all those that are alive in Palestine are surviving under the terror and menacing fear of not knowing who is going to die next, which of them is going to be killed next. And still not enough, if at all, anything serious is being done to stop the war and this human carnage. While on the other hand, over 1,400 Israelis, including innocent women and children as well, have been killed, all allegedly killed by the Palestinian group called Hamas. I have no doubt that by the end of this my talk, that most of you, if not all of you, my listeners and truth seekers, may agree with my summary conclusion that I share at the end of my answers to each question. That both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. No doubt you will agree with me by the end. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. You will understand that the immutable laws, I have no doubt that you too will understand that the immutable laws of our mother nature, they change never. For as a man or woman sow, so shall he or she reap. So please let me now continue with my exploration. Beginning with question number 1. Quote, Mystic philosopher, what is your perspective on what is going on in the Middle East, mainly Israel, and what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank? And my answer to this question is that from my perspective, from the mystic philosopher's perspective, it is all madness. It's insanity. And if at all you have listened carefully and paid enough close attention to all that I have said in my previous presentation titled Another Perspective on War the World Over, you will know exactly what I said and meant by the word madness, aka insanity. And if you did not watch or listen to that presentation, I ask that you please do so now or please do so at your earliest convenience. But for your convenience, I will just quickly do a recap and highlight some of the points that I think are relevant to the exploration of this topic and to the question asked. For those of you who watched and listened, you will remember hearing me say, in no uncertain terms, that from the mystic philosopher's perspective, my spiritual and metaphysical insights, the earth, the entire planet, earth, is under a spell. And not just a spell, but it is under an evil spell. It is under a curse, a bad omen called what? Madness. AKA insanity. I told you then and I'm telling you now that the entire planet, our entire planet is under siege by alien forces. Service to self forces. That are the forces of evil. I told you then and I'm telling you again that from my perspective, the evil alien entities and forces of evil that have our planet and our Mother Earth and all her natural inhabitants under siege, under a spell, under an evil spell, a curse, a bad omen called madness, also known as insanity, are literally working and manifesting their wickedness upon us through their very small group of convict. Remember this? Their small group of convict, hand-picked, brain-picked, mind-picked, and race-picked humankind and human being that are most commonly known and easily recognized by those of us that are in the know as the elites, the elect of the gods, the elect of God, the chosen few, the chosen people of God and of the gods. The elites, the Illuminati, the untouchables, the warmongers, the bankers and the money changers, the colonizers, the Satanists, the globalists, the super rich, the 1%ers, the governments of the world, the politicians, the so-called leaders and so-called world leaders, etc., etc. I told you then, and I'm telling you again, that we have been and we are being spiritually bombarded and blanketed by our adversaries, the evil unseen ones, the enemies of our natural native earthly humanity, namely the alien invaders and their alien God or the alien Elohim, and by extension their gods, with the spell, the evil spell, the curse of madness, aka insanity. I told you that they have cast and broadcast, and that they are constantly recasting and rebroadcasting upon the earth and all her inhabitants the spell, the evil spell, the bad omen, the diabolic frequency, the curse of madness, also known as insanity. Consequently, the majority of the world's population, if not all the world's populations, including the aforementioned mind controllers, yes, the governments, yes, those that are most popularly known as the politicians, the so-called leaders and the so-called world leaders and the governments of the world, they are all infected by and under the spell, the evil spell, the bad omen, the curse, the diabolic frequency, the influence of the spirit of madness, aka insanity. And I would also like to further emphasize those facts right now and tell you that from my perspective, the mind of most, if not of all, of the aforementioned so-called world leaders are not only under the influence of the alien forces and forces of evil, but that they are hacked, they are hijacked, and they are also low-jacked with the evil spell of madness, aka insanity. Now the question that I think that I should ask and share my perspectives on the answers before I continue with this my exploration into the topic are as follows. How do we know and how can we know and know that we know if or when someone is or some people are under the influence of the alien invader forces and forces of evil? In other words, how do we know and how can we know if or when someone or some people are hijacked or hacked, hijacked and low-jacked with the evil spell of what? Madness, aka insanity. And my answer to that question is simple. It is by their fruits. It is by the fruits that they bear. That is how we know and know that we know that they are mad or insane. Mad, aka insane. Meaning it is by their works, their deeds, their words. It is by the words that they use and are using to describe others of their fellow humans, others of their own kind. It is by their angry and disparaging words that they are using to intentionally and maliciously denigrate, humiliate, and subjugate others. It is by their actions, their rude, insolent, and obnoxious behavior towards other people. It is by their lack of humanity, aka it is by their inhumanity. It is by their selfishness, their pride, their superiority complex and greed that they exhibit. It is by their psychopathic and tyrannic behavior. It is by their lack of genuine love, respect, empathy, sympathy, and their lack of reverence for human life and by extension for all life. It is by their warmongering and hunger for blood, and especially the blood of innocence. And the list could go on and on, but I'm sure that you, my listeners, that are in the know will fill in the rest. But for right now, I think that is sufficient examples for you, my listeners, to know and know that you know if or when someone or some people are hacked, hijacked, and lowjacked with the evil spell of madness, aka insanity. And please note, not just temporary hacked, hijacked, and lowjacked with the evil spell of madness, aka insanity, but permanently. And so, the manifestations of evil in the form of wars that are going on all across the world right now, as I am speaking. For example, the manifestations of evil in the form of wars that are going on in the Caribbean, here in North America, there in the Caucasus Mountains, they call Europe, on the continent of Africa. For example, again, let me also point out here the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the war that is going on there, the DRC, etc. The manifestation of evil in the form of wars that are going on all across the so-called Middle East. You name it or you name them. But right now, the focus of this talk, my talk, is on the country or the state called Israel and what is happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. And the evidence is hereby showing that it is all madness, aka it is all insanity. I told you in no uncertain terms that the only word or words that I can honestly think of in the English language that can best describe and explain what is happening there is madness, aka insanity. Some are out of their minds, and others are driving those that are not already out of their minds. It is all madness, aka insanity. I must hereby inform you that from my perspective, as a result of this madness, aka insanity, they are both condemned to the same fate, total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are hereby called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. One is going first and the other will follow. For as it is written in their own Adamic race history and holy book, and I quote, "So in everything do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets, unquote. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. That's one immutable law. From my perspective, there are some laws that are called immutable. And why? Because they are immutable. They change not, and nor can they change. And nor do they discriminate. And it does not matter if you believe in them or not. It does not matter if you believe in a God or worship a God or not. It does not matter if you believe your God can save you from anything, everything. The fact is that they are simply that, immutable laws. They are simply that, immutable laws. They are immutable laws. Laws of the unknowable source and Mother Nature. For as a man sow, here comes another one. For as a man sow, so shall he reap. A woman includes, so as a man a woman sow, so shall he or she reap. Do good, and good will return to you. Do justice, and justice will return to you. And by the same token, do evil, and evil will come back to you, etc. And for your information, my listeners, it is not a matter of if evil will or good will come back to you or to us. Let me include myself. But it is only a matter of when it does. Now, because the spirit of madness, aka insanity, has hacked, low-jacked, and taken over their minds, the voice of reason, justice, and wise judgment have vanished from their minds. Consequently, those that have the superior power and wherewithal, as in the case of Israel, given to them by their God or gods, and in addition, they are fully backed and supported by their very powerful, even so-called super powerful brothers, sisters, supporters, allies, well-wishers, believers, and friends to inflict, or what may also be described as to inflict retributive justice upon those that have wronged them, those that have done them wrong, or those that may have wronged them, because they are now under the spell, because they are now under the curse, the dark omen of madness, aka insanity, and have themselves become mad. They have themselves become mad, aka insane. They have themselves become totally unreasonable, totally out of their minds. They are unable to judge wisely. Because of that, they are unable to judge wisely. They are unable to show mercy and to do justice. And what does mercy mean? It means compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone who is in, someone who it is within one's power to punish or harm. Let me repeat that. Mercy means compassion or forgiveness that is shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or to do harm or to harm. So because the spell of madness and insanity is upon them, they are unable to see, let alone know, understand, and overstand that to whom much is given, much is required. They are also unable to see that mercy outweighs justice. Let me repeat that again. Mercy outweighs justice. They are unable to see because they are mad. In fact, in accordance to their own Adamic race history and holy book, it is written, and I quote, "He had shown thee, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of thee but to do justly?" Do justly. not vengefully, but to do what? Justly. And to do what? To love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Unquote. In the said Adamic race history book, it is written, with the merciful thou wilt show thyself mercy. Mercy outweigh justice. Get it being put. But then again, the problem is when the spirit of madness and insanity has taken over anyone, they have completely lost it. This that I'm saying is not for them. It's for those that are not possessed, have not been influenced and taken over, hijacked, and hacked. Those that are already gone is hopeless. It's like a madman. You would not be wise if you see a madman standing with a machete in his hand and is prepared to use it. And even when or not he or she is prepared to use it, you go standing in front of the madman and telling him that he's mad. If he chop off your neck and kill you, you shouldn't feel no way. You deserve it. So I'm not. This message is not for mad people. Mad people will get upset about it and try to nitpick it because they're mad. I don't expect anything better from them. Because when you're under the influence and when you're taken over, jacked, hacked, and hijacked by the forces of evil, you will not be able to see reasoning and do justice and love mercy. You will not know, as I said before, that to the merciful, you will obtain merciful. If you show mercy, you too will obtain mercy, because your time is coming. Our time is coming. And he said, blessed are the merciful, the man or the character in the Adamic race history and the book called Jesus Christ or Yahushua. It is alleged to have said, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And it makes sense. These are immutable laws. Now, let me take it away from the Adamic race history book to another holy book, if you will. Another spiritual book. Now, according to this spiritual book, is called the Kabbalion, if you will, for those of you who know. Now, according to the fifth Hermetic principle known as the principle of rhythm, and I quote, everything flows out and in, everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The swing of the pendulum manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates, unquote. That's the Kabbalion. So from this, we must know, and the evidence does show, that the pendulum do swing both ways. Remember I said earlier, today for me, tomorrow for you. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. And as my late mom would say, today for me, tomorrow for you. And when the table, she would also say that when the table turn, sinners, who are also known as the offenders, are going to weep and mourn. My dear people, those of us that have not yet been jacked and hijacked are totally hacked, jacked and hijacked, and still have a good level of control over our own minds. Please take note and let me remind you or look into this fact that mercy will always outweigh justice. Mercy. Don't lay it on and prove how bad and powerful you are, because your day or night is coming. And when it comes, as mom would say, sinners weep and mourn. And now, as a result of their gross madness, aka insanity, I must hereby regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate. Which is what? What is the same fate? Total destruction. They are both on a train, a runaway train, going right to the pit of destruction. But the only good thing about this fact is that because of their madness, aka their insanity, they don't know that they are on the destruction train. They don't know. Honestly, if they had known what I'm saying to you, both sides would be behaving better. They don't know because they're mad. They don't know. They're mad. They're insane. Even if you are not looking at the word madness or the concept of madness or what the illness called madness from the perspective that I'm sharing, you would know that when you're mad, you're mad. And they will only become aware, they will only become conscious when they destruct and self-destruct, which is when everything crash, then they will come to their senses. But then again, regrettably, it might be too late. And just for the record, please know that I did not say that they both are condemned to the same fate, which is destruction. Destruction meaning the action or process of causing so much damage to something that it no longer exists or that it cannot be repaired. For example, I'm not only saying that through the actions and process of war, the indiscriminate bombings, shootings, the killings, the maiming, the starvation, the torturing, the human suffering, etc., etc., that is currently being done in Gaza and to the people of Palestine, destruction that are causing so much damage to the literal properties and infrastructures, thereby making them either non-existent or making them beyond repair. Not at all. I am not only talking about that, those inanimate and temporal things, but I'm also talking about that which is eternal. I am talking about a person's or a people's name. A person or a people's reputation that will and that does live long after he or she is gone. Long after he or she has transcended this physical plane. I am talking about a person's name, a person's spirit, a person's reputation, the only thing that can and the only thing that will truly live forever. Even when your name is forgotten, you're forgotten forever. And why? For a person's name and a people's name, or if you will, a nation's name, will not only haunt them in this life. A person's name, a people or a nation's name will not only haunt their memory, but it will haunt them in spirit throughout eternity as well. And it does. And thus, it is also said and written by wise men of old and women. Wise women I mean, but wise men of old. And I quote, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." Unquote. You can have all the material wealth, money, riches, religious. You can have all the religious and political power and all the weapons of mass destruction, nuclear and otherwise. Political power, you can have all the political power and fame in the world. But if your name is not good, if your reputation is bad, then not only are you a loser in this life, but you will both know and remember. You will be both known and remembered as what? A waste man or a waste woman. Nobody will call your name in honor. And that is why we who are sane must all strive for a good name and not for political or otherwise power to control, to abuse, to dominate, to humiliate, to show off. Wonder if you understand what I'm saying. So please note that I said total destruction, meaning everything plus the thing that value the most to them will be totally destroyed. Who remembered Adolf Hitler? You see, once I mention that name, I need not say much more. For his name, his reputation says it all. And throughout eternity, that's who and what it is. And he is. And how he will be remembered and referred to. Who remember Colin Powell? Not too many of us alive today. And to all future true and honest historian, from my perspective, he is remembered and he will be remembered as the world's biggest liar, deceiver, and advocate for war in the history of all wars. And regardless of how some may try to sanitize his name or his reputation, his memory, the truth be told, that is how he will be seen and remembered as what? As long as this world lasts. And even if consciousness is on the other side and memory of this side is there, that's how he will be seen and known as a liar, a deceiver, a warmonger, one who caused the death of many innocent lives. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are hereby called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. Why the immutable? Because the immutable laws of our mother nature, they change never. They change not. For as long, for as a man or a woman, so shall he or she reap. So let us be careful of the seed that we sow, what we say and do, how we treat others and how we big up ourselves. These are lessons. Now question number 2 from my listener, why do you, and I quote, why do you think the Palestinians are being made to suffer such harsh punishment, such human indignity, such cruelty, such abandonment and inhumanity? Why such wrath and such vicious vengeance from the hand of God that is evidently being administered through the state of Israel along with its cohorts, the United States of America, and all the political leaders and governments of the Western world? And my answer again is the same as in question 1. It is all madness. It is all because an evil spell, an evil spirit, a curse, a bad omen, a diabolic frequency called madness, aka insanity, have been cast and broadcast and are being constantly recast and rebroadcast upon the earth and all her inhabitants, and is currently manifesting itself and pronouncedly, if you will, on TV and for the whole world to see. Among them right now, yes, is madness. All madness. Now, from my perspective, the people called Israel and the people called the Palestinians are enemies. They are at war with each other for decades, if not for centuries, possibly longer. Again, if you prefer the state called Israel, or if you prefer the state called Israel and the group of Palestinians called Hamas, are enemies, and they are at war with each other. And the people, or the subjects of the state of Israel, and the people of Palestine that are ruled by their democratic elected government called Hamas, they elect them, are the possible innocent victims of that vicious war. From my perspective, the state of Israel can or may be described as a wild beast, as a wild lion. And I'm not the first to associate lion with them, as you shall shortly see. A lion, a wild lion, a lion that has the natural and inherent instinct and potential to be what? Ruthless, especially if or when it is provoked. And as my late mom would say, and I quote her now, when a lion is asleep, don't wake him, unquote. And the group called Hamas can or may be likened or described as a hyena. And in the jungles, or more correctly, in the terrain, where both lions and hyenas live and hunt for food. The evidence also showed that they hate each other with perfect hatred. I read this in the Adamic Race History book. So I'm just borrowing it here, just to express the type of hate. How they hate each other. Perfect hatred. They are enemies to the highest degree. Now, from my perspective, if you are at war with your enemies or your enemy, then you should not only learn to fight physically and strategically, I might add, but you should also learn the art and the science of war. According to the late Chinese military general, philosopher and author of the book titled The Art of War, Sun Tzu, and I quote him, he said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb to every battle. Unquote. From a mystic philosopher's perspective, the Palestinian group called Hamas, that I have for the purpose of making an illustration, or for the purpose of making and illustrating a point, are likened to, or I have likened to, hyena. They may or may not have known themselves. Listen carefully, they may or they may not have known themselves. But it is quite evident to I, the mystic philosopher, that in their conduct, that they did not know who or what their enemy called Israel, which again, for the purpose of making and illustrating a point, I have likened to a lion. Now, why a lion? They did not know what it is. They did not know who or what Israel is. They did not know that Israel is, or Israel may be likened to, an angry and ruthless lion. In fact, according to the Adamic Race History and Holy Book, there is a relationship between the word lion and the word Judah, from which the word Jew is derived. And if or when the lion is provoked, Israel is provoked, its anger and ruthlessness know no boundaries or limits. Can see that right now as I'm speaking. And to further compound things, if or when it too is under the spell of madness, aka insanity, or if or when it is provoked into madness, aka insanity. For if they meaning Hamas, who have likened to hyenas, if they had known this fact, then they would not have provoked it the way it is alleged that they did. If they had known this fact, then they would not have invaded its den. They would not have invaded the lion's den the way that it is alleged they did. If they had known this fact, then they would not have violated, kidnapped, and murdered its cubs and members of its pride, as evidently or allegedly they did. In other words, they would not have awakened the lion that I have described earlier, named Israel, the way that they did, and not expect extremely serious repercussions upon themselves, upon their people, upon their young and old, and upon their communities, etc., etc. So they didn't know. So here we can see for ourselves that as a result of their ignorance, coupled with the curse of madness, aka insanity, that they have grossly violated, they mean Hamas, have grossly violated one of the most important rules, if not the most important rule, in the art and science of war. And now, as a result of their gross madness, aka insanity, I must regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate, total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. The immutable laws of our mother nature, they changed never. For as a man or as a woman so shall he or she reap. Now question 3. Why do you think that their own God, Allah, has condemned and forsaken them and hand them over to the God and people called Israel to be humiliated, to be dehumanized, to be severely punished, if not exterminated from off the face of Mother Earth? Now, my response, from my perspective, the answer to this question to some people might be considered a bit paradoxical, if not altogether paradoxical. And why? Because to the best of my current knowledge, coupled with their proclaimed biblical history and theology, they are both of and belong to the same God. They are both of and belong to the same Elohim, whom they, along with their fellow races, their fellow family members, called Christians, is worshipped and called by many different names. They are both offspring of the same one vine, the same one humankind, race and ancestry, namely the created race, the Adamic race, the Adamic God, and the patriarch ancestor called Abraham. Some people, both in and out of madness, aka insanity, also claim to be members of the Adamic race, the patriarch Abraham ancestry, and the Adamic God family through religion such as Christianity, through conversion, through adoption, and through spiritual circumcision of the heart, and some through the practical and surgical removal of the foreskin covering the tip of their penis as well. However, as it is written and mentioned elsewhere before, those whom the gods wishes to destroy, they first made mad. Therefore, madness, aka insanity, from my perspective, is the first and sure sign of inevitable destruction. And now, as a result of their gross madness and insanity, I must hereby regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate, total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are hereby called Palestinians and Hamas are both condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. For the immutable laws of our mother nature, they change never. They change not, for as a man sow, so shall man or a woman sow, so shall he or she reap. And even though I might not be around to witness when the pendulum swing the other way, but swing it will and swing it must, because the immutable laws of our mother and source mother nature, they change not. Question 4. Why do you think that they, meaning the people of Palestine and Hamas, and their mothers and children, desperate cries for help, for justice, and for mercy, for food to feed their infants and children, and for water to stay alive, and to be allowed to bury, to be allowed to bury their dead, are being ignored by the United Nations, are being ignored by the World Health Organization, the World Security Council, the Western world, the international community, and even their own fellow Muslim brothers and sisters and Arabs. Now here's my answer to this question. From my perspective, there are at least 2 straightforward answers to this question. Number 1, it is because they are condemned and abandoned by them. All the aforementioned, meaning they are condemned and abandoned by the United Nations. Yes, I said it. The evidence is there to show it. And if it even changed by the time I turn on back the television, it proved that they have abandoned them for the past 24 days. It is because they are abandoned by them, meaning they are abandoned, condemned and abandoned by the United Nations. So for example, according to Wikipedia, who are these people called United Nations? According to Wikipedia, and I quote, the member states of the United Nations comprise of how many? 193 sovereign states. The United Nations, aka the UN, is the world's largest intergovernmental organization. All members have equal representation in the UN General Assembly, unquote. And according to thought.com, a website called thought.com, it's rather thoughtco.com, the main function of the UN or the United Nations are as follows. And I quote, as it was in the past, the main function of the United Nations today is to maintain peace and security for all of its member states. Though the United Nations does not maintain its own military, it does have peacekeeping forces that are supplied by its member states. On approval of the United Nations Security Council, these peacekeepers are, for example, sent to regions where armed conflict has recently ended to discourage combatants from resuming fighting. It said in 1988, the peacekeeping force won a Nobel Prize for its action. In addition to maintaining peace, the United Nations aim to protect, listen to this key part now. In addition to maintaining peace, the United Nations aim to protect human rights and provide humanitarian assistance when needed, unquote. Check it for yourself on thoughtco.com. Now, to the best of my, the mystic philosopher's current knowledge, Palestine is a member of this group of people called United Nations, UN. And Israel is also a member of the so-called United Group. According to the site that I have just quoted from, the main function of the United Nations, the UN today, is to maintain peace and security for all of its members or its member states. Now, if 2 members of the group of 193 members have a dispute, 2 out of 93 have a dispute, or a conflict, or a war, my question is this: why can't the rest of 191, 2 from 193, last time I checked, leave 191 members, and 191 to me is more than 2. Why can't the rest of 191 members rectify that dispute among the 2 immediately and permanently? Why can't they? Am I to interpret and understand and overstand that they are that incompetent? 191 people are so incompetent that 2 are manipulating them that much? And if it is impossible to rectify that dispute, that conflict between the 2, then why not kick them out? Kick them both out of the group and to their own demise. In other words, abandon them both if the 2 of them can't come to anything. Or at the very least, abandon the one that is most mischievous, the one that is most contentious, the one that is most unwilling to do what is right, to make peace and to have peace. Because, from my perspective, as long as there is a dispute in the group is not united, and it cannot be united. And one would have to be mad, aka insane. And one would have to be an idiot, an ignoramus, an intellectually dishonest humankind, or a politician to believe and to proclaim that this is a united nation, or that the group, or that such a group is united. They are condemned and abandoned by the World Health Organization as well. Here is a quote from the World Health Organization website, known as WHO, WHO. WHO, or WHO, World Health Organization, works worldwide to promote, listen carefully now, to promote health, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable, unquote. Now, am I to understand that the Palestinian children and their elderly are not vulnerable to all sorts of diseases as a result of what is being done to them right now, and their abandonment by all these namesake and name brand organizations? They, meaning the Palestinians, are condemned and abandoned by the World Security Council as well. The truth be told, I don't know why they are called, this group are called the World Security Council. Unless it really means that they just get together as big shots, or as big shot friends, and talk about their own security, their own personal security. Because from my perspective, the evidence is showing that the world is not at all safe. Am I the only one? Somebody please inform me. They are also condemned by the Western world. And that is quite evident. They are condemned and abandoned by the so-called international community. Let me dissect the word international community for you and show you how it's all a lie. Inter, according to their own language and their dictionary, inter means between. And community means community. Come to word hyphen C-O-M-E, come hyphen unity. Or if you prefer, communite. It also means come together and unite. Therefore, if this is truly an international community, or if such a thing does exist, then the evidence is hereby showing that they have come together and condemned and abandoned the Palestinians. And even their own fellow, the Palestinians' own fellow Muslim brothers and sisters and Arabs, from my perspective, have evidently condemned them and abandoned them. The evidence is hereby showing that those of their Muslim brothers and sisters and fellow Arabs that does not condemn them and abandon them all those that are truly empathetic and mean well don't have the power or the wherewithal to get involved and help them. It's like seeing a child drowning or your spouse or somebody drowning and you can't help. Your hands are tied or you just don't have the power or you can't swim or something like that. They are also constrained by their own fellow Arabs and Muslim mind controllers, also known as their governments. Their governments are backing them and doing everything to keep them from even helping their own friends and others that are dying. And the most that they can do to show their solidarity is to protest and march in front of countries' embassies. While on the other hand, those that have the power and the wherewithal to literally do something to save at least some of them and relieve the torture and suffering of those that are dying and about to die, those that are about to die, will not get involved or do anything other than lip service and fancy speeches. And even if they do get involved shortly after I finish this and turn on the TV to see what's happening, it would be too late. It would at least, it's going to be at least, if, the operative word here is if, it would at least 24 days late, when over 8,300 have died already, and possibly since I speak, many more have died. So they just go to get involved and do, all they do is, other than they do is lip service and fancy speeches. You see them on the TV, you see them, giving lip service while people are dying and suffering. In fact, it is also evident that not even their God, Allah, who they are praying to, is helping or showing them any mercy. From my looking on, I'm not a believer in none, but it doesn't make, I ain't see anything happening. And why do they all condemn them? Why do all the aforementioned people condemn them and leave them all out to dry, as the saying go? And thus all their desperate cries for help, their desperate cries for justice and for mercy have fallen on deaf ears and are falling on deaf ears. Why? And my answer is that, from my perspective, they are all literally terrified. Literally terrified of the angry and ruthless lion, as described earlier, called Israel. They are all literally afraid. They are all tremble. They all tremble in their heart. They all tremble in their shoes and in their souls of Israel. All 191 of them plus all others are literally afraid of Israel, because quite unlike the Palestinian group called Hamas, and to their credit, they all know that they know who and what Israel, as aforementioned lion, really and truly is. Yes, that's why they're afraid. And thus they don't want to be torn to pieces and ravishly trampled and trampled to destruction and death under feet by it, the lion. Now, please just ask and answer yourselves this question, my people. If it is true that Vladimir Putin is the richest so-called leaders, but the richest one of the most powerful so-called world leader, and thus he is living a life of luxury, wealth and political power, way beyond 99% of the world, or any other wealthy and politically powerful world leaders that you can think of yourself. Do you honestly think that for love, justice, morality, humanity, human decency, human dignity, or for anything else, that he or that they would risk losing their abundant wealth, taking on the aforementioned lion called Israel for a bunch of poor, poor, helpless, and defenseless group of people called Palestinians? Are you crazy? Do you think they're gonna make somebody tear up their house apart and take them out of their lifestyle to save some poor and ignoble people? I personally don't think so. And this is one of the reasons why the people are suffering. And now, as a result of their gross madness, I must hereby regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate. Total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today, for one, tomorrow for the other. The immutable laws of our mother nature, they change never. For as a man or a woman sow, so shall he or she reap. And the answer to the rest of 3 questions can be summed up the same way. Question number 5, why do you think those that are in authority, even their own fellow Arabs and Muslims that have the power, military and otherwise, to help them, seems not to care enough about them to get involved and help save them? And if not them, the adults, if not saving them, the adults, why not save the innocent and defenseless children? And my answer is that from my perspective, they are all terrified, as mentioned before, of Israel. They are all literally afraid of Israel. They are all trembling, or they all tremble in their hearts, in their souls, and in their shoes of Israel. They will make lots of noise. And they are making a lot of noise. They will protest and bark like dogs from the fences. But as the huge lion look in their direction, or if the huge lion look in their direction, they will run and hide and change their barking, aka change their speeches to that of singing. Yes, you hear them talking, but they miss. The lion look at them and decide to, as if he's coming at them. They start singing. Talking turned into singing. And why? Because they, unlike Hamas, as mentioned before, they know who and what Israel, the aforementioned lion, is. You know, I mess with that lion. You afraid of him? Everybody afraid of Israel. Everybody on the planet Earth right now, from my perspective, is totally afraid of that angry lion. Worse, that this group, in their ignorance, went and provoked them and make them madder. And logic coupled with activated common sense will affirm that the only way to stop an angry lion that is gone berserk and is killing and eating humans and cattle alike is to either let it continue to do what it is doing and hope for its own speedy and immediate self-destruction, or to let it live out the rest of its natural life doing what it is doing unhindered, or as it is among the Kenyan Messiah people back in the day, because I think they stopped doing it now, not sure, but back in the day they would have come together and kill it permanently to save the lives of their people and their animals, to save the lives and to protect their village. In other words, to them it is killed or be killed. But nobody have the power to even think of such a thing with this lion. Lion of Judah. It's called. Seriously. And now, as a result of their gross madness and insanity, I must hereby again regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate. Total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. The immutable laws of our mother nature, they change never. For as a man or a woman sow, so shall he reap. Question number 6. What sin do you think they have committed or may have committed to be humiliated, dehumanized, rejected, and punished the way they are evidently being humiliated, dehumanized, rejected, and punished? and the way that their cries for mercy, human empathy, sympathy, and justice are ignored and are being ignored and rejected even by some of those that call themselves the most merciful, the most civilized, the most loving, the most religious, the most God-fearing of all the devoted Christians. Why are most Christians, along with their leaders and preachers, so hardened against the Palestinians and their desperate and inhumane condition, or the desperate and inhumane condition that they find themselves in? And my answer is that, from my perspective, they have committed this sin called negligence and ignorance. They did not take time out to know who and what their enemy is. And as a result of their gross ignorance, they now perish. And now, as a result of their gross madness, aka insanity, I must hereby regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate, total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinian and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. Why? Because the immutable laws of our mother nature and source, they change never. For as a man or a woman sow, so shall he or she reap. And the seventh and final question: could it be that it is because they are Muslims and thus they have not accepted the Lord Jesus Christ, who is a Jew, as their God, Savior, and Redeemer? And my answer to this seventh and final question is no. But as mentioned several times before, it is from my perspective they have committed the sin called negligence and ignorance. They did not take time out to know who and what the enemy is. And as a result of their gross ignorance, they now perish and are perishing. And now, as a result of their gross madness and insanity, I must hereby regretfully inform you that they are both condemned to the same fate. Total, not just destruction, but total destruction. Both those that are hereby called Israel and those that are called Palestinians and Hamas are condemned to the same fate. Today for one, tomorrow for the other. Why? Because the immutable laws of our mother and source, mother nature, they change never. For as a man or a woman sow, so shall he or she reap. So let me now say thanks for listening, my people. I have detained your patience for quite a while. Thanks very much for listening and possibly for watching. And please stay tuned for my upcoming series titled Another Perspective on Peace Between Humans and Humankind. In the meantime and between time, in your becoming, I will that you become more and more and not less, aka bless. For I am the mystic philosopher.